Hello and welcome to Profiles in Risk. This is your host, Tony Cañas, and today we're doing a career and talent episode with James J. Venezia.
Very nice. Venezia.
Yeah, Venezia. With James J. Venezia, clearly Italian name. And when I say career and talent, what I mean is we're going to talk about James's career, and we're going to talk about our mutual ideas when it comes to talent in the insurance industry, which in some ways we agree, in some ways we may not. So it should be a really, really fun one. So I met James. He was reminding me because I have zero memory. I met James back in 2019 when I spoke. I was one of several speakers at the New Jersey I-Day, organized by my very good friends Matt Struck and Patrick Stokes. What a fantastic chapter! What a fantastic chapter!
And don't forget about Rita.
She was not like they were like president and vice president, or they were like one was president of one New Jersey chapter, the other one of the other, right?
Yes.
So no, Rita's amazing, beyond amazing. We were just studying about her for the last like 50 minutes before we started recording, but yeah, that particular event, in my mind, they were the ones that invited me. But I've known Rita for years, absolutely. And we've had her on the podcast. I don't remember the podcast number, but I'll link it. I've been sending her business because I've been having a lot of conversations with carriers who have no idea how to handle this whole remote thing.
I've been following that on your LinkedIn.
So James, your LinkedIn only goes back to 98, but you were just telling me that you got your CPCU in 1990. So you've been in the industry for a while. So
correct.
So you went to school for a degree in accounting.
Correct.
I'm glad that insurance rescued you from that. So how did you end
Yes, me too.
So did you do a few years in one of the big four and then fell into insurance? How did you end up in insurance?
So I probably shouldn't share this, but I missed my second interview with one of what was at that time the Big Eight, because it was 1985. However, I think that was, the universe was watching out for me, because I had done a summer of accounting work, and what I just struggled with was it was inactive and it required me to be at a desk, and I'm a super active person. So that, being part of a family that was in the insurance business led me to choose insurance as being the right place.
Okay. So you accidentally, it was accidentally, got, missed your interview, and you never went back for a CPA. So you did not work at all as an accountant.
I did not work at all as an accountant, but I have to say my father, who was in insurance, that we had a family insurance agency, guided me towards accounting as just a great major. And it's become, over the years, invaluable in terms of understanding risk and being able to use financial statements to just understand business models.
That makes perfect sense. My experience was very similar with I started school in computer science, and I couldn't cut the math. I finished school in management information systems, which is the business side of computer science. Yes. I have not worked a day of my life in an IT department, but it has been very useful. Understanding the IT side, being able to speak the language has been very useful. So you go into the family agency, or how did you start your insurance career after not going to?
So I actually start my insurance career at Travelers in 1985, and I start in their newly formed. This is when the insurance industry was starting to get into the equity markets. Which was called TESI. It was Travelers Equity Sales, and I don't remember what the I stood for, but I had my Series 7 and learned about all these equity products and was working as a marketing rep. And I did that for a little less than a year. It was mostly to indoctrinate me into the insurance business. Then I kind of got the calling from my grandfather, who had started in 1936. His last name was Pugliese, and he started in 1936 an insurance agency.
You're Italian on all sides.
On both sides,
Quite
yes.
clearly.
Part Sicilian, actually. That's the passionate side. So I got the call from him. Would you consider coming into the business? Your cousin's leaving, and we could really use your help. So the agency was, it was a small independent agency. My dad had joined my grandfather in it was probably the early 60s when I was born, and started to build the agency. So that was my dad's father-in-law. I stayed with the family business till 1998. If you're familiar with family businesses, there's pluses and minuses. And I just really wanted to explore insurance and take it to a different level, the level that my dad set the foundation for me. So he retired in 98, and I went to an agency that a friend of mine had owned, and I kind of worked in the background putting things together, and he kind of brought people in, and I was the closer. In
Great skill set to learn.
Yes,
valuable.
Yes. In 2007, and I was always kind of just really nerdy in terms of wanting to dig deep and understand things, and that's why I got my CPCU just, while I was still used to studying when so not by 90, I had it, and I kind of went back and forth. And
where was the trip in 90?
It was Washington, DC.
Did you go?
The next year, I think, was Hawaii.
Oh,
yes,
okay.
I went. It was a wonderful experience. And I got involved with the New Jersey chapter after that. And by 2000, 2001, I was president of the chapter. And again, just wonderful experiences. As a president, I got to go to Disney World.
Okay. Yeah. I just got back from the Disney World trip, 2021 edition.
Yep.
So yeah.
Yes, and we were just talking about the great Star Wars section, right?
Oh, beyond amazing. I won't get going on that because that'll take the whole episode. Okay, so the family agency, get your CPCU.
At this point, I like to look at that as just a transition to Phoenix Insurance. So the firm that I was with was purchased by Phoenix Insurance.
Oh, okay. So how did you end up at Phoenix?
So I just kind of followed the flow. And when our firm that I had gone to was purchased by Phoenix, I stayed with Phoenix. I really appreciated the leadership there. We got to be friends. And over time, actually, it wasn't that long. It took them about a year to notice that I was the connection with a lot of these very sophisticated accounts. They said, look, you know what? You're the real connection to these accounts. You have a certain personality. You have certain technical skills. You should become a producer for us. So that scared the heck out of me because, we're talking about
in the industry.
Yeah.
The lowest survival rate.
Yes. So I take it on, and I really start to excel because those successes which I had from 98 to 2007 with sophisticated accounts, like putting together an insurance program for a blast mitigation device manufacturer. It was a terrorism product, and helping them understand the Terrorism Risk Act and get some of the advantages of that act. Putting together a program for a large regional fuel oil dealer who the year before had an incredibly tragic explosion and nobody wanted to work with them. Then putting together a program for a international franchisor who was in the US and Canada. And that was 2003. And when that happened, underwriters asked me, because I really take a ton of time to understand my clients' businesses. They said, you're looking for this. How do you think we should write the coverage? So I'm like, well, if I was going to write it, I would use this language and I would remove this exclusion and I would put the language here. They're like, let us check with legal. They check with legal and legal likes it with very few changes to the language I wrote. It's the first time I manuscripted coverage. And then that just developed a level of confidence for me that, that just kind of propelled me in conversation.
Yeah, that is fantastic
And that
experience.
yeah, and that was kind of pre-production, right? Because remember, we didn't get purchased by Phoenix till 2007, and it was about 2009 when Derek and Bill said to me, "Hey, you should be a producer." So started in production, kind of love to learn business models. So I put myself out there to other innovative and disruptive companies. And all of a sudden, I guess the law of attraction, that's the type of client that I began to attract. So as I attracted that type of clients, one of the most interesting became Buy Brands. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with Buy, you may have drank their product. It's BAI. And Buy Brands became really a true superhero story because they dwarfed Vitamin Water in terms of the sale price when they ultimately sold to Pepsi. So I was part of Buy Brands, helping them with their insurance from 2009 when the product started in the founder's basement until 2016.
Oh, you were their insurance guy from the beginning.
From the beginning, when they, until they sold to Dr. Pepper for $1.7 billion.
So is that a little bittersweet? So you've been kind of like an external consultant to the team. They're now rich, but you're very happy for them. You've known them for a long time. Right? You saw them grow up,
incredibly happy,
but you lost the customer.
I lost the customer. Yes. And not only that, when I first met Ben and he started the company, he knew my interest in fitness and health. And he's like, why don't you take a territory and help us out? And my kids were young, so I didn't do that. But I could have had equity. But so Tony, the super exciting thing there was I got become very good friends with the CFO, and we're still friends to this day. And he would call me when things were happening, and they're going to be on CNN, or it was CNBC, sorry. And hey, be here. The night before the deal was announced, he said, be at the office by 8:00. So I drove down to, it was either Trenton or Hamilton. I guess it's a Hamilton address. And got down there. They're bringing all the employees into this beautiful conference room, and they announced the deal with Dr. Pepper. But just to have been part of that, even from the outside, kind of looking in,
was
this cool, amazing experience. And, having had the background prior to that of manuscripting coverage, which I've done hundreds and hundreds of times at this point, and being part of other exciting startups, some of which failed, some of which succeeded, understanding some of the things that have caused one to fail and one to succeed. It's just been so enriching. And not to mention the flexibility that the industry has provided me.
And now, like if I were in your shoes, I'd be going to promising startups and hey, I've done insurance / risk management for a startup through acquisition, through $1 billion acquisition, right? Like I can help you through this whole thing when it comes to managing your risk.
And Tony, that is exactly the conversation that I have and the way that I market myself.
That's beautiful.
And one of the other, I have many interesting clients. Another one that I work with, and I can say their name, I'm sure they would be happy for me to say that. It's called Natural Systems Utilities. And they're in water use and reuse from New Jersey to California. That is a very sophisticated account that I put on in 2011 because they do design, build, operate of water and wastewater facilities. So they're a sustainability business. They also do energy recapture to help facilitate these systems. During their initial transaction, when my client put together a team to purchase the company from another public entity, which was spinning it off, I met a consultant And the consultant looked at my work because I reviewed all the contracts, and I was told there's this consultant, he's a pain in the butt. You need to make sure we meet his contracts with the insurance. That consultant is now a good friend and somebody who I provide services to as an independent contractor, as a consultant. So I was able to start my own consulting company in 2016 and provide services to him. Working with a company right now that's trying to become the stock exchange for private company transactions. And they have 5 separate entities which are all tied together.
There's a lot going on in that world.
There is, and there's a lot of capital out there for private companies, but there really isn't a venue to trade those private stocks or that private equity with transparency.
So your consulting company that you opened in 2016, is that Animal Genius Sage LLC?
That's correct. Yeah. And that, Tony, is my life philosophy, right? I'm super active. I'm very rugged. I competed nationally in college as a power lifter at a lightweight class. And it's been a big part of me. And I always struggled with this active animal, right? This person who needs to be super knowledgeable to create the opportunities I want to create for myself and my family, and just having kind of a life that's, where I have this spiritual component. I guess now you call it mindfulness is the big buzzword. So I named my company after my life philosophy.
Animal Genius Sage. That makes perfect sense. And one thing that I think is really cool, which you basically can't do in the carrier space. So you're still with Phoenix, right?
Yeah, and I love my role with Phoenix.
Yeah, you've been there 23 years, according to LinkedIn, and yet you've been able to open your consulting company and do this and do that, right? That kind of flexibility and that kind of open-mindedness to allow your people to do other stuff as long as they're doing the job well for you, that doesn't exist in the carrier side.
It doesn't. And I am so lucky to work with my friend Derek Wiper, who's the principal of Phoenix. And, and he gets it. He knows how I thrive. And he's given me that environment. And the consulting facilitates the brokerage, right? There's very few brokerage that have a high level brokerage plus consulting experience. I consult to public companies on cyber risk. I've rewritten parts of cyber policies for public companies. And you know what? And I'm the quiet guy, right? So you're not going to see my name in the insurance journal or somewhere else. I like being in the background, helping my clients and being super involved with their businesses. And by the way, I got the best advice years ago from an underwriter at Mutual Marine. His name was John. He always dressed in black. He has since passed away. And it was about 2003, 2004. We had worked on Housemaster together, which is the franchisor I had mentioned from 2003. And I said, John, you've been in the industry a long time. What do I study next? I did my CPCU. I did a whole bunch of other designations, which I let go because they made me take courses that were the same as those I studied for the designation, which I felt was unfortunate. And John says to me, Jim, study your clients. Know their businesses. And that's really what propelled me in my own business model, like, going for the innovators and the disruptors, because I think a lot of times they're surprised not by the breadth of my experience with people going from startup to exit, but also, being able to quickly understand their business model and ask good questions.
Yeah, that advice makes wonderful sense for both underwriters and brokers.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I work with great underwriters. And I think the thing with me with that just relationship with underwriters is, I'm the person who's giving them sometimes maybe more information than they want. I don't think that's really the case. I kind of say that kind of ingest, but giving them all the details and creating this long-term relationship, because we've underwritten and created a unique product. So a client's not going to market it every year because they know we may have manuscripted a portion of it. We may have gotten an underwriter who actually had a passion for this client's field, right? And you can find that too. For an example, with natural systems utilities, in the beginning, that's a very difficult account to write. And we found an underwriter who had worked, he's an engineer, and in the summers, he worked at wastewater facilities and had the appropriate licenses. So he understood the risk and he was like, wow, I'd love to take this on. And at the time, Tony, they were doing biogas to energy projects as well. And I got to tell you, you getting those contracts to review for insurance and going back and forth with their customers and the attorneys, it was so engaging. Sadly, they're out of biogas to energy, but they're in their core business, which still remains super, super interesting. And if I could say on the consulting side, I get to work with, because of my experience, my buddy Art has put me in front of clients in the tech field and in the communications fields, as well as a super unique organization down in Florida, which is called Babcock Ranch. And I'm not sure if I could say the name, so I'll just say a super unique organization down in Florida that has created America's really first sustainable suburban area. Large solar fields with amazing batteries.
That's kind of an oxymoron.
Yeah, I guess it is. Right. A suburban area that's sustainable. So ultimately, there will be 19,000 homes there. I forget how many have been sold to this point, but they have a school, they have workspace for people, there's a farm, there's autonomous vehicles, and again, this wonderful solar field. The solar field was in a recent Super Bowl commercial because the energy company they partnered with had put it into the commercial as a preview to show the battery areas.
And of course, a lot of the stuff they're doing is very, very new and thus very, very hard to insure.
Yes. And it's fun for me to be there to just understand these things and also draw in other information to help the underwriter understand why maybe the exposure is not as significant as they think because it's similar to A, B, and C. But the wonderful relationships with other people in the industry are just like super engaging. And that's how we really get things done, right? It's all about
this is a people business.
Yeah.
And domain knowledge is important. Understanding insurance is important. That's why we invested in CPC under designations.
Yes.
But even with the $1 billion of investment that have come in to the insurtech side, this is and will always be a people business.
Yes. And, from an insurtech perspective, I like the insurtechs that are using technology for analysis and supporting risk management processes. So the insurtechs I work with tend to be on the cyber insurance side. And there's a few really good ones out there, which I think are game changers and maybe pushing traditional insurers to step up their game a little bit with technology and risk management offerings.
Cyber, I mean, I've never worked in cyber, but from the outside, we place people in cyber, so we do searches in cyber, but it looks like the Wild West. Like it is changing rapidly. And it's so very, 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 very visible, right? With so many companies and government units and so many organizations getting hit with ransomware. Even in our own industry, like big names get hit with ransomware. Is there enough capacity for the amount of cyber insurance we need? Like this is a developing by the day kind of field.
I think so this morning I got a call from a client in the midst, it was a consulting client in this case, in the midst of a cyber attack. They were struck by a ransomware attack. There was about a 90-minute gap from the time they think the ransomware became active in their systems and between the time they noticed it. And it's just it was, I don't like when those things happen, but it's so incredibly engaging to be able to help them through that, to quickly look at some clauses in the policy and say, hey, I know you, in this case, I know your broker's looking at this, but look, here's some issues for compliance and for the way this claim has to be handled. Also, have you thought about this? And I think you need to have this conversation with the insurance company once they start the claim process going, because in context, the conversation that I was recommending was sooner rather than later notifying their clients. Now, it's not a data breach issue because this is corporate information, but it is a situation where we wanted their clients to be aware of it in the event that this attack against them launched attacks against other people through email, right?
Makes sense.
But just super interesting to be engaged. And I play a lot where the general liability policy ends. So I have deep knowledge of cyber, of product recall, of environmental, of D&O, and most professional lines. And I'm friendly with a lot of insurance attorneys who I consider to be our product testers, right? Because they're testing our product, right? Is it working the way
it's where the rubber hit the road in our industry, right? That's where we really find out what we insured.
Yes. So that's given me wonderful collaborations with other members, or other industries and other professionals, and just furthers my understanding of what I do and gives me more resources to help. But I will say, Tony, one of the big insights for me was that a modern, when I realized just through reading and through my work and recognizing, what it takes to get a product to market or a service to market, realizing that we as an industry are really such an important part of the economic engine of the world, right? The world, literally, I don't think the world can function without. Yep, go ahead.
And we get no credit, right? I tell that to people all the time when we. I tell people all the time, especially if they're early in their careers. This is an incredible industry. You're doing good for the world. You're doing good for the economy. Insurance is absolutely necessary for the functioning of the economy. And we get no credit for it because non-insurance people don't understand how important what we do is.
So, and originally I said to you, I agree with that point. I'm going to step that back. I don't agree. I think when we add value to that piece of paper or to that contract, people get it. Commercial clients, they get it. They understand that say working with me or working with other brokers and consultants who are like me. And I don't think that's a high percentage, unfortunately. And I think part of it is because the industry doesn't attract certain mindsets, but I think the other part of it is the industry doesn't have a solid mentorship and education program.
We are 100% on the same page. I've never been an agent. I've never been a licensed agent. In fact, every once in a while I have to go into a disclaimer and be like, I'm not licensed in any state to sell you insurance, but here's right. As an insurance nerd, here's my thoughts. We have a lot of agents who are little more than order takers.
Yes.
And they bring no value to, and it's not their fault. It's our fault as an industry, right? Yes. The licensing is too easy.
But also, if I can interject,
absolutely.
I don't just think the licensing's too easy, and I'm not saying this in a negative way, because I've over the years had to overcome a lot to become a more social person, right? It was very difficult for me to be social and to communicate with other people. But there are learning differences, and a lot of people who go into sales are not necessarily folks who enjoy an academic setting, yet they're brilliant people. And our industry doesn't have a way to effectively engage and train them. And that's why they wind up becoming order takers. Yet we can change the learning models to make them more multi-sensory. These same people would be so much more engaged, and it would be a game changer for the industry.
Agreed completely. I think you talked about mentoring. I think mentoring programs, they're important in the carrier side. They are critical in the broker side.
Yes.
And they are rare.
Yes.
Sadly rare. So I agree with that completely. So the how we connected. So just for the listeners. So we were connected from me speaking at CPCU New Jersey I-Day 2 years ago, and so we were connected on LinkedIn. And then 2 weeks ago, by the way, I did not remember this when we joined the call today. I was like, what were we supposed to talk about? That's how prepared Tony usually is for the podcast. I feel that it's fresher and real that way.
I love this. I love chatting with you.
So I found how we could. So James mentioned that he had made a comment on a post of mine, and I'm like, okay, I get it. And then I went back and looked through it. I found it. Okay, so I created a meme about 8 months late, right? Using and I'll show it. I'll show it on the screen while I'm describing it. So when the listeners watch it, it's on the screen. But basically, the ever given the ship that got stuck in the Suez Canal, blocking 80% of the world's trade. The picture of the gigantic ship and what looks like a much smaller piece of large equipment. I'm sure that crane or whatever that is trying to dig it out is gigantic, but compared to the ship, it's minimal, right?
Yes,
and
correct.
Of course, this happened months ago, and people made it into tons and tons of memes. And finally, like, it hit me 9 months late that this was a perfect insurance meme. So what I wrote on it was insurance talent crisis for the ship, right? And then the programs where we have to attract new talent for the little thing digging it out. And this thing got 10,000 views on LinkedIn. It got a ton of comments, 76 comments. It got 103 likes or clicks. And as of right now, if I sort the comment by most relevant, which is probably just the algorithm tells me that it's the comment that got the most likes, it's your comment. It's literally coming up first.
Very cool.
And I will include a screenshot of the comment here, but I will read it for those listening to this on the audio version. So James wrote hi, and he tagged me on it, right? So you have Tony and all my designations, or as many as LinkedIn can fit. Great conversation, and thank you. You can't hunt for talent. Real talent finds you because they want to be there. Pretty sure insurance is not perceived as highly engaging, and that's unfortunate. Contrary to the outside world perception, in the right roles, insurance is. And then you give me 4 well fleshed out bullet points about what insurance is, contrary to the perception of the world. And I agree with all of them. Number 1, a career that puts you in front, innovation and super interesting innovators. Absolutely. You just talked about that for the first half an hour we were chatting.
Right.
And number 2, a place where you get to be part of a team that gets products and services into the stream of commerce. Everything you buy requires insurance, absolutely, to get into the market. The coolest e-bike, the trendy new beverage, all of the products and services on Main Street and Wall Street. And in Silicon Valley, like I just had a Silicon Valley piece, but absolutely everything requires insurance, every product and service. Number three, a role where if you're serious about it and develop your skills, you get to advise, solve critical problems, and ultimately impact the economic engine of the world seriously. The foundation of the modern economy includes insurance. I agree with this 100%. That's what you were saying, how important insurance is. And I was saying people don't realize it. You're 100% correct. I would say, you said the foundation of the modern economy includes insurance. I would say the foundation of the modern economy is insurance,
Right.
in large part. And then number four, many more things where when management is engaged and has the experience to express where we all fit in the big picture and back it up with engaging training and paths to success. I think that point number four is exactly where we fail the majority of the time.
Yes.
And my session on millennials basically comes down to that. It basically comes down to if we could paint the picture to our new kids, whether the millennials, Gen Zers, or whatever, if we can paint the picture to our new kids on how interesting, important, engaging, rewarding, and many other positive characteristics insurance is, we would not have a problem retaining them. And if we could communicate that to high schoolers and college kids, we would not have problems recruiting. What we have is a marketing problem, a employee marketing problem, in my opinion. And finally, you have here, if you want talent, you need to plant the seeds of engagement. And as an industry, we do not do that well, which I 100% agree. So one question, what I found super interesting, you can't hunt for talent. Real talent finds you because they want to be there.
Right.
That is the line that I can lose sleep over. And my day job, by the way, is convincing carriers and insurtechs and brokers and other organizations within the insurance space that we can hunt for talent, that we can find unicorns. So what do you mean by you can't hunt for talent? Real talent finds you.
So I think that talented people get to make many times, they get to make their own choices. And if insurance isn't an interesting choice for them, then it's going to make your job, Tony, finding them virtually impossible.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's what I mean. If they understood in high school how insurance impacts the world and from the perspective of both innovation, capitalism, and social good, insurance is that engine. And sadly, this isn't taught. It's not taught in financial classes.
In high school, in college.
And even many folks who are so well trained in accounting and finance and technology, they really have no understanding of insurance and risk management, which is a critical part of their job. To
this day, in 2021, there are 4,000 colleges and universities in the US. Out of those 4,000, about 70 have a risk management program of one sort or another. So it's already a teeny bit, right?
Yes.
And most of those programs are not majors. And out of the few that have majors, risk management and insurance majors, out of those few, only two, I might be missing one maybe, but as far as I've been able to find, only the two biggest, Temple and St. John's, yes, maybe Florida State, but those two, Temple and St. John's, I know for sure. Only those two require the risk management 101 class for all business majors.
Right.
It's incredible. It should be, every business school should have a risk management 101 class, even if they don't have a major, and it should be required.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, look, I have an accounting degree. I had to take a business law class, but I did not have to take a risk management class. And part of business law is really risk transfer, which is risk management, right? Or at least the contractual risk transfer.
So I think what you're really saying here, and I'm agreeing with you 100%. You can't hunt for talent. Real talent finds you. I think what you're saying is very similar to what I've been saying. You've probably been saying it for longer because I've only been in the industry for 11 years. We have to become a talent magnet.
Yes, we do. Look, the finance industry is a talent magnet. And I think the finance industry has wonderful mentoring and training programs. And pharma, the same thing, right? But we don't have that in insurance. And yeah, that's all I can say. We don't have that in insurance.
I can't tell you how many times I get calls on Chat with Tony. And they are finance majors who, for whatever reason, in fact, last year it happened a whole bunch. Last year during COVID, it happened a whole bunch where the finance major would call me and be like, so I went to school for finance, wanting to work in investment banking, or I went to get my MBA, wanting to work in consulting. And now I have the really bad luck of graduating into the COVID recession. There are no jobs, and a friend or a family friend or my parent or whatever, somebody is pushing me to look at insurance, or I've accepted a job in insurance and I found you because of that. But oh my God, this is not at all right. Like lifelong dream of working in finance, or lifelong dream of working in consulting, because they're that good at recruiting, right? And the first thing I would tell them whenever I have a finance major, the first thing that I tell them is, you are so very, very lucky that you fell into insurance, because this is a much better career than finance. It's not as glamorous, and you might not make as much money your first 2 or 3 years, but in the long term, it's a much better career. But we're just not good at marketing it.
But let's maybe say it on the surface, it's not as glamorous. But when you find yourself sitting across from a startup that's raised $1 million or hundreds of millions of dollars, or is about to go public, and you're helping them solve a problem to do that, that's pretty exciting. And I think you can do that much more frequently in the insurance industry in a variety of positions in the industry, right? Then you can do that in other industries.
100% agreed. 100% agreed. Now, the biggest problem that we have is that a lot of the entry level jobs today are, especially carrier side, are crappy call centerized jobs, and that kills us, because we burn them out before they have a chance to discover what a great industry this is. But what you just said, I agree with that 100%. I had a young underwriter several years ago tell me, and I can't remember if I was still in claims and trying to get into underwriting, or if I was already in my first underwriting job. I know that I met her at a CPCU event, and she said, when people ask me what I do, I tell them I'm 24 years old. I'm in my first job post-college, and I make every day, I make $1 million decisions for a Fortune 500 company. Because now it might not be a Fortune 500, right? In her case, it was. But that is what we do in underwriting. It most definitely is. Every decision you make could be $1 million loss.
Yeah.
And that's an amazing way to look at it.
It really is. But I think when we bring folks in at these entry level positions, we don't show them the path to that place.
Preach, brother. That is why we created Insurance Nerds. That is why it did not have a revenue model. To this day, it doesn't have a revenue model. It makes money every once in a while because of the books and my speaking, and a few other things. Every once in a while, we get an advertiser, but we have never had a revenue model. What we did have was we recognized the problem, and we recognized it first at Nationwide Insurance. And then we realized that it was not a nationwide big N problem. It was a nationwide little n. Like everybody, every carrier in the country has this problem, which was young talent, young kids with college degrees in call centers most of the time, who did not grow up wanting to work in insurance and think of this as a job and are desperate to get out. And we are not, as an industry, we are not showing them the path. We're not showing them how awesome those jobs can be. We are not showing them how to get there. And they just burn out. And that's why Insurance Nerds has been successful, because those kids hit Google and they hit YouTube and they find me. And they find the ridiculous amount of content that the community, because at this point, I don't have a measure for it, but at this point, I would guess that 60% of the articles are written by the community, not by me. I haven't written an article in years on the website.
Right.
But we built, we attracted a community that is passionate about what we do, that has created just an incredible amount of content to help them grow and stay within the industry.
Right. Yeah.
And we've done it with no budget.
Right.
Right. Literally, like, in fact, the website is basically helped by duct tapes and dreams. Because we don't even have a real IT guy. Ryan Bates has helped us every once in a while, like especially when the whole thing comes crashing to the ground and it has to be revived. But I'm the IT guy, and while I have an IT degree, I've never worked in IT. Like, I'm not a web developer.
Right.
Yeah, and yet there is such little competition. I mean, there's Gamma Era Sigma, and they do wonderful work with the RMI programs. There is Insure My Path. There is the guys out of California that get insurance professionals to go speak at the schools. There are some programs here or there, but not nearly enough for the need.
Right.
Absolutely. And that's why this meme has 10,000 views.
Right.
Yeah, no, this has been really, really awesome. So what advice do you have for agency and brokerage owners when it comes to young talent?
So I think, unfortunately, a whole generation or more of both agency owners and insurance executives and management fell into the business and haven't found the passion. I think a starting point is for them to look at their careers and find the passion, and then be able to share that with great sincerity to the younger folks, the less experienced folks in the business. And I think when they look back on their careers, if they're not convinced they're passionate, they'll become passionate when they do that look back. I have a story myself, because again, it struggled in the early years of the business, and ultimately asked myself, wow, why did I ever think I might want to leave this business? Which, when I was in the family business, I had those questions. And what I had done was look back, and I just said, to myself, what defines me? And I came to understand super clearly in those things where I was 100% and I felt like I was 85 in insurance, what defined me. And it was creativity, perspective, and action. And then I realized in my career in insurance, I had that every day, but I couldn't see it. And understanding myself better allowed me to see what I was actually doing and creating in this business. And it was just one of those light bulb moments, or aha moment for me. And I think that if we can get folks to show and live that passion, who are executives and leaders in the business, that's the beginning of getting it to trickle down.
I agree 100. That's beautiful. I agree 100%. I believe it was Mike Koselmi a few years back. Mike Koselmi, a former president of the National CPC Society and a great mentor to many of us. I think it was Mike that said, "Stop apologizing for working in insurance."
Yes.
When people ask you when people ask you what you do, proudly tell them that you work in insurance. Proudly tell them why you love it.
Yeah.
And if there's something I've learned in speaking at many conferences, is this industry is packed with people who have been here for 25, 30 years, 35, 40 years. I've literally met some, and they love it.
Yes.
And we're packed with them, right?
And Tony, before I forget, and along the lines of your point, when I thought that people were when my perception was that people were uninterested in what I had to say about my career, that was true. When I had this moment, this aha moment, and came to understand that, wow, people are interested in what I do, and what I do is interesting. It changed the conversation. And very frequently people are like, wow, you were part of that, or you get to do this every day. They're surprised that that's what insurance is and can be.
Okay. Last question.
Sure.
What's your advice for the young insurance agent or broker who just started and has not yet found their place, right? They haven't validated. They have no idea how to sell this stuff or what to do in this industry.
So first step, get your CPCU designation and take some other courses with the
checks in the mail.
Yeah,
like Matt Struck would.
Yeah, because learning at that level is going to create the foundation for your future. And then I would say I got some great advice from a buddy of mine who went to Harvard and was very successful. And he said, be a generalist in the beginning, learn everything you can, all the pieces of the puzzle, and then start to specialize and develop your expertise in the areas that really interest you.
I agree with those 100%. Absolutely 100%. James, it's been a real pleasure. It's been a real fun conversation. I am so glad. So Profiles has had 250 some episodes. The majority of those are InsurTech interviews. Okay. The reason for that is because it's very hard to get carrier people to be able to come on.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I get it.
So I'm happy to do the InsurTech interviews. I am. But my favorite interviews are career chats. So they're the ones that really kind of get me up in the morning, and I'm proud of stuff. So thank you so much. This has been a really fantastic one. Thank you for commenting thank you for connecting back when we met at CPCU New Jersey. Yep. Thank you for commenting on my meme with a well thought out great comment. The LinkedIn is ranking most relevant to the whole post.
I think that's so cool,
right? I'll include a screenshot of that because I'm not even joking. And
Tony, wait, the other reason I think it's so cool is because I love how you followed your path and how you are just who you are and you present that. And it's just a great vibe. And and I love it. And I'm so thankful that you asked me to participate in this call. So.
My pleasure. I hope to say hi at some point once as the world slowly reopens and I'm back in New Jersey, which it used to be often because it's part of my territory for Jacobs, and I have a ton of New Jersey-based carriers. In fact, my biggest client is in New Jersey. So I hope that I'm in your backyard sometime next year. Okay, we can say hi. So thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome, Tony. Thanks.